For months and months, the constant economist and media speculation about the economy has finally come to fruition. They've got their own way, and it's been announced we are in a recession. So what does that mean for us? Well, for what I call fair weather property investors, where they're only used to a rising market and very low interest rates and complete buoyancy at all times, it's panic stations. But for those experienced in property, they will have strategies to deal with a recession. In a lot of cases, and as somebody, probably the biggest property investor I know, commented on one of my posts last week saying that a recession is probably the best time for us to profit from property. Do you want to know how you can profit from property even in a market like this?
We know that there's been a lot of speculation. Just a few months ago, the government were telling us we are in recession, we're going into recession. The media were telling us something else. And there was a whole load of confusion just surrounding the whole situation of our economy here in the UK. The great news is, in property, and I discovered this myself after a rather unfortunate rodeo in 2008 during the credit crunch, that there are strategies for every type of market, good, bad, indifferent. There are strategies that work, and some of these strategies don't work in a good market that will work in a bad market, and vice versa. So on the basis that we could possibly enter a few turbulent months due to obviously the state of our economy, I just thought it's wise that we get something in our tool bag, and I'll talk very briefly about some strategies that I know work very well in a market that's perhaps not as buoyant as it has been. Now, let me just obviously introduce myself and obviously the seminar tonight. The strategies are going to consist of 3 different ones and a question and answer session. My name is Ben Hollingsworth. I've always been involved in property, with the exception of a few Joe jobs after school. I trained as an estate agent in West London. I then went on to have property auction experience, returned to South Wales and started Symphony Group, which has basically seen me through the past 10 to 15 years of acquiring property, primarily within the NP postcode area. And that is mainly for people from outside the area, investors from outside the area. Some 5 years ago, after obviously having a very successful outing with property, a lot of people were saying to me, we want to see training courses. I've tried the training courses, I'm not a fan of them. So I started a mentorship program as well. So if you like, about 25% of my time, my business is taken up helping people achieve their goals in property. And it's working rather well for them and for me too, because there's nothing more satisfying than seeing people succeed, seeing people flourish, and seeing people achieve their own goals in property. So that's me, Ben Hollingsworth. I'm joined also by Jamie French. Jamie is the founder and managing director of Notebook Money. There he is. He's not eating for a change, guys. Normally when we see him on the webinar, he's normally got his curry going on and all sorts of things. So he's probably starving right now.
Like most sane people in the country, there's actually a barbecue on in the garden, but I'm here with you guys.
Who wants to be at a barbecue when we can be here talking everything property? Guys, if you want to take your laptop, your tablet outside, please feel free. If you want to drink beer, if you want to enjoy barbecue, this is an open session. This is a free-for-all. It's an open session. So please do what you're enjoying. So yeah, Jamie's here as well. Jamie will be talking anything finance, insurance, mortgages, protection, etc. So any questions on that score will be directed straight to him. Sorry, I'm struggling a bit this evening because the hay fever. I've had to admit it. I have got hay fever, and it's causing. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Jamie. It's causing me a little bit of grief. So please bear with me as I get through this presentation. But the strategies that I wanted to talk.
As always, I do have food for those who have never met me before.
Unbelievable.
Always eating.
You'll never go hungry. The strategies I want to talk to you tonight, guys, like I say, work in kind of, if you like, a downwards market. So they're just something we don't have to use today, tomorrow, next week, next month. There's something that you can have in your toolkit that when things do change for the worse, the turbulence comes in, those people who haven't got anything in their toolkit will panic, will run around like headless chickens. And I know what that's like because I did it myself in 2008. Those people who have prepared, they've battened down the hatches, they have prepared their battleships for the storm, will be well prepared, and they will profit. And you can be one of those people profiting in a downward market. So the four options here: assisted sale, lease options. I'm going to talk briefly about direct to vendor as well, because that's really important, and joint venture partnerships. So how does the economy affect property? Well, if the economy takes a downturn, we see fall in values of property. It's difficult for some people to meet their debt repayments. There's an increase in foreclosure, very American, repossession, as we dreaded to call it in the UK. Interest rates at the moment are the highest they've been for 15 years, but it's the normality to me. I'm an old timer at this. A lot of people say to me, wow, interest rates are high. When are they coming down? Guys, they're not coming down. This is where they should be. This is where it'll make our economy stable. This is where, at the moment, the next bullet point, inflation peaking will be curbed. And it's only by increasing the interest rates. Yes, a lot of people are saying to me, well, hang on a second, Ben, we're looking at certain strategies like BRR that I'll explain later. And we used to get all of our money out and we had major cash flow. Well, great, guys, celebrate in the glory that those days were fantastic, but unfortunately they are now over. The interest rates have risen. So whilst we can get a lot, most, if not all of our money out of deals, we're not going to have that much cash flow today. But we're not looking at today, tomorrow, next week. We're looking at the future. Property is a long-term strategy. It's not a get-rich-quick thing. It's a long-term strategy. Lower demand for the purchase of properties. And if you add up all of those bullet points, it brings us to my bottom point, which is opportunities. Opportunities for us to expand upon. Opportunities for us to thrive in a recession. I forget who it was. Somebody was telling me the other day they studied the global economic markets, and one of the great guys, Warren Buffett, whoever it was, said recently that more millionaires are made in recession than any other time. I believe it's those guys who have their toolkit full and they have the strategies and the willingness to change, the willingness to adapt to different market conditions, and they will thrive. So my first point, assisted sale. How does this work? Well, if we go back and look at these strategies that I'm now presenting to you. Now let's go back, not that far ago. Let's go back to maybe a year, even 18 months ago. If you wanted to sell your property, it doesn't matter what it is, you could ring an agent, put it on the market and sell it for more than asking price the same day. That was the state of the market. Demand was at an all-time high, supply was normal. So therefore it created that vacuum that gave everybody the opportunity to sell their property at quite often over-inflated prices. So therefore, these strategies in that kind of market wouldn't work. But we've seen a lot change since then. We've seen a few forceful interest rate hikes. We've seen properties that were selling the same day for over asking price are now sticking. They're on the market for longer. If you look at Rightmove and all the industry data, it'll tell you straight away, property has been on the market for X amount of weeks, months. Property has been reduced. You speak to agents, sales are falling through. So we're going to be in a position where the vendors are not so secure in the knowledge that they can literally ring the agent. I've got something to sell. I've put it on the market today. I've sold it tomorrow for over asking price. Those days are gone. They will return. Everything in property is cyclical. Okay. At the moment, we're seeing a lot of properties being reduced, a lot of properties sticking, and a lot of properties falling through at the last hurdle. Assisted sale is a great, great system. Now, how this would work is traditionally, let's say we're doing flip projects. We would look to purchase a property that needs work. It has the opportunity for value to be added. We can then do the work ourselves, and we can then make a healthy profit margin by selling it to somebody who hasn't got the means, the inclination, the knowledge, or whatever to do the work. Somebody that wants a turnkey property. It could be a first-time buyer, it could be a home mover, it could be an investor. In fact, anybody that wants a turnkey property. So traditionally, we would buy the property. We'd incur our costs from day one. We'd buy the property. We'd have to pay stamp duty or land transaction tax, as it's known in Wales. We'd have to pay legal costs. We would then perform the refurbishment program before putting it back onto the market, incurring further legal costs. and also estate agency sales costs. So how does assisted sale work? Well, let's take somebody that's got a property that needs work. They can't sell this property. Now, it could be a number of different reasons. They could be asking too much. They could be that they need too much. For example, if the property's got a mortgage on it, let's say the property's worth £100,000 and there's a £100,000 mortgage on it and they can't sell it for £100,000. If they wanted to dispose of that property, they would have to actually dip into their own pocket, not only to pay the sales fees, the legal fees, but also to pay any negative equity they have in that property. So we come along and we've got a very creative solution for these people. So what we say to these people is, what we'll do, we'll get our solicitors to talk to your solicitors, we'll pay the costs, they will both create an agreement, an assisted sale agreement. So what this means is that we agree a price with the vendor that they are happy to accept. Now, let's say that the property owes them £100,000. We could say to them, you've had it on the market for 6 months, you're still paying a mortgage on it, you're still paying insurance, you're still paying council tax, and you haven't sold it. This property must be a real drain to you. What we're going to do is we are going to settle your mortgage in full, and we are going to pay all fees, and we are going to take the property from you tomorrow, once the agreement's signed, and we are going to refurbish it and sell it for a profit. That's our game. What we're doing for you is we're taking the property off you tomorrow. We will pay your mortgage until the property sells to the end user. We will pay the insurance, we'll pay for all the refurbishment works, and we will manage the project ourselves entirely. So what that does for you is it guarantees you that you tonight can have a very good night's sleep because you've walked away from that property. You don't owe any money on it until the mortgage is obviously settled, and you're getting all of the encumbrances every month paid for you. When it sells, we will take the profits. Now, what's that done for us? Well, first of all, we have, in the case of a £100,000 property, saved ourselves 2 massive costs. The first cost, land transaction tax. Now, if this is a 2nd, 3rd, 10th, 20th property that you own, you have saved on £100,000 £4,000 before you even start. You have then saved yourself the cost of finance. It depends how you finance it. Jamie's going to kill me for this. I'm talking about a business. You've saved yourself the cost of financing. Now, typically, if you took a bridging loan out, that could be anything up to £10,000. So immediately, from day one, by agreeing this deal, although you have to pay the legal costs and the mortgage contribution over the term that you've got the property for, you've saved yourself £14,000 straight away. We then refurbish the property. We sell the property to a third party. We make our profit. And the vendor's happy because they've not had to dip into their pocket to pay for any negative equity, and they've not had to dip into their pocket to pay for legal or estate agency fees. So in effect, if done correctly, legally and compliantly, and of course, as I said earlier, always with a solicitor providing independent legal advice to the seller, then it's a win-win situation for everybody involved. So that essentially is assisted sale. We don't buy on day one. We take control of it via a contract, a legally binding contract drawn up by solicitors for both parties. We then refurbish it. We then sell it. We take the profit, and the vendor has the price they need to satisfy them too. Again, everybody is in a win-win situation. That's assisted sale. If you do have any questions, please save them up for the question and answer session. My hay fever is really getting to my throat, so excuse me for having a quick drink. Before I move on to our next strategy is lease option. Now, how many of you here have heard of lease options? Lease options are very simple and straightforward. There's a lot of bad press. There's a lot of bad publicity. It's like anything in life. If you Google it, you're going to get bad news. You've got an illness, an ailment, something wrong with you. Google it. It's the worst thing you can possibly do. Lease options are very simple and very straightforward. It's exactly what it says on the tin. It's two independent agreements that run concurrently. The first one is the lease. So you sign with the owner of the property a lease, and that can be a year, 5 years, 3 years, 7 years, 10 years, 12, whatever you choose, and whatever agreement works for both of you. Anything over 7 years does require further legal work, so it is a more complex process. So you'll find most lease option agreements, the lease and the option to purchase, are both 7 or less years. So you have your lease signed here. Like any lease, it's an agreement. It's an agreement between the owner of the property and yourself to lease that property over a specific period for a specific amount of money each month or each quarter, backed up with rules and regulations within the lease, such as maintenance, insurance, etc. Pretty much standard stuff. What runs alongside a lease option is the option to purchase. And that is an option that's set up on day one for a fair price for you as the leaseholder to purchase that property within that specific time frame. So let's say you take out a 5-year lease and you have a 5-year option to purchase. You can then purchase that property at any time during your 5-year lease for the price that's been agreed on day one. Okay? Now, the easiest way to explain this is for us to have a look at a living, working example of a lease option. Let's have a look at this one here, for example. The market value of the property is £80,000. There's a mortgage outstanding of £80,000, and the owner's monthly mortgage payment is £300 per calendar month. The problem here is that the vendor is a tired, unmotivated, and frustrated landlord. There's lots of them around with all the new regulation, all the new speculation, and everything else that's going along with rentals at the moment. A lot of people who have been involved in property investment and rentals for a long time are getting very frustrated. There's a simple solution to it, but if people are frustrated, they just want out, let's give them the opportunity to get out of it. Let's work on a situation again that's a win-win for both of us. The property he's got here, or she has, is not selling for £80,000 and it's on the open market. The property can't be sold below market value. As we said earlier, the mortgage outstanding is £80,000. So it's a bit of a quandary because obviously this landlord has a property that's untenanted, not paying for itself, has an outstanding mortgage, and of course they're liable again for other payments such as council tax, insurance, maintenance, etc. So what we've got to do is have a look at a solution for these people. So the lease option solution would be that you as the investor agree a lease option with the owner of the property. In this case, under the arrangement, the investor pays the owner's monthly mortgage of £300 per calendar month during the option period. The investor can buy, if he or she chooses, at a later date. In this example, let's say it's an option for a 7-year deal at £85,000. The owner vacates the property. Obviously, if it was a buy-to-let, they wouldn't have to do that anyway. The investor then leases the property at, say, £500 per calendar month. The mortgage is £300, so there is cash flow of £200 per calendar month for the investor. Not a great deal, I know, but at least it's an admin payment for them doing what they need to be doing. The main gain of lease options is the capital appreciation of that property. Now, we've got an interest-only mortgage that we're servicing each month, in this particular case of £80,000. Now, that mortgage is not going down. But thankfully, if records serve me right, property has doubled in value every 10 years since records began. Not a straight graph, rather a bumpy one. We've had peaks and troughs, highs and lows, booms and busts, credit crunch, recessions. But on average, every 10 years, property has doubled in value. So we're not sitting there for our £200 a month cash flow. We are sitting there to wait for that property to rise far in excess of £85,000, and we have the opportunity to purchase it for the original agreed price of £85,000. Now, would you say, well, actually, if we don't want to purchase it, but it's worth, let's say, £100,000, £105,000, £110,000, what can we do then? We can actually agree to sell the property. We return the original investor, our agreed purchase price under the option to purchase of £80,000, and that profit is for us to keep. So whether you want to secure yourself a little bit of cash flow, which is not important, whether you want to secure yourself, obviously, an option to purchase in a rising market, a piece of equity within this property that's going to rise and rise and rise whilst the property is paying for itself, it's the best possible way. It also gets the owner out of the quandary they're in right now because they're currently servicing a mortgage on a property that's not paying for itself. They're worried, they're having sleepless nights. Those are all over today. So again, it's a win-win for the vendor and it's a win-win for you, the investor. A lot of people say to me, these lease options, they don't sound right. Do you know, lease options have been available and been used since the pharaohs were effectively transacting pyramids. They've been around for many, many years. And an option to purchase is a perfectly legal and compliant document if done by a qualified conveyancer or solicitor. Most major house builders, Wimpey, Taylor Wilson, Redrow, etc., they buy property based upon option to purchases. Because you think about it now, if you were looking to buy, I don't know, some farmland, and you as a major house builder know that you'll probably get planning permission. There's no guarantee. So you agree a purchase price for this farmland of, let's say, £5 million. Now, if you buy it and you don't get planning permission, you're stuck with an awfully expensive field full of cows. On the flip side, if you don't buy it, yet you pay possibly hundreds of thousands of pounds in consultancy, planning advisors, planning permission, legal costs to get the planning permission in place, the seller can turn around to you and say, well, actually, I've decided I'm going to keep it myself. Or if you want to buy it, the £5 million deal is off the table. We want 10 million for it now. Planning permission doesn't belong to the individual that applies for it. It belongs to the land that it's actually secured upon. So an option agreement will give, obviously, the farmer who's selling these fields a lot of hope because he's thinking, well, you know, I can hang my wellies up now because anytime within the next 2 or 3 years, I'm probably going to end up with £5 million. The house builder also has the security that when they invest their time, their effort, their money in acquiring the planning permission upon this land, that they will still be able to buy that land for the original sum of £5 million. Again, works well for both parties. So anybody that tells you they don't understand lease options, they sound dodgy, they've never heard of them, absolute nonsense. It's just that of late, since probably early 2000s, we've started using them a lot more on smaller deals, residential houses, buy-to-let properties, flats, etc. That's where they've been used. That is lease options. Before we move on to our next topic, I'm going to take a quick swig. Joint venture. So many people ask me, Ben, how did you get started in property with no money? You always need a little bit of money. But what you need to do is you need to find somebody that can join you, a joint venture partnership. There's so many people out there, guys. If you're into property, whether you're new, whether you're in property right now, whether you're thinking about property, there's so many people out there who don't know anything about property. They're too busy. Their family lives, their work lives, their careers, etc., mean that they haven't got the time to learn, educate themselves, and they haven't really got the inclination, but they've got plenty of money and they're really unhappy with the returns they're getting from their investment vehicles at the moment, be it ISAs, stocks, shares, whatever the case is. These people aren't happy. They want to invest in property. So if you can show them a valuable proposition that you will do all the work, they will put the money in. This is a great way into property with little or no money. It works well for you because you obviously get a start in property, and it works well for them because they get a far better return on their money than they would if they left it where it is right now. So joint venture partnerships work fantastically well. It's a way in with no money. You've got to find the right partner. You've got to do your due diligence to make sure that obviously the partner which you partner up with is genuine and their funds, of course, come from a genuine source. A solicitor will be able to check this out for you. Jamie knows a lot more about this than me, and obviously the Money Laundering Act, etc., etc. But they will be able to sort all of that out for you to make sure that who you're partnering up with is a legal and compliant person. You need to get an agreement in place. Again, a solicitor will be able to do this for you. This will be a small agreement just outlining both parties and what their obligations, responsibilities are towards the joint venture partnership. It's important it's an exclusive partnership to any other business means too. Because the worst thing is you want to get involved in a legal partnership with somebody who's got, for example, gambling debts, historical debts. You then become liable for those. You've got to make sure that the solicitor looks after your interest and obviously looks after the other party's interest too via their independent legal advice. So you both come together with a great agreement that's been drawn up by solicitors who will protect both of you. So it will simply say your partner is responsible for providing the finance for the venture, and you are responsible for all the work. And at the end of each project, you will check the spreadsheet out, you'll see what the net profit is, and you will divide that in the way that you've originally agreed. It could be 50-50, 60-40, whatever the case is. But you divide that in the way that you've originally agreed. You've got to look at compliance, and you've got to look at obviously the obligations, like I say, via the legal routes. But if you get involved with a joint venture partner and it works for both of you, this could map out the future. They're happy with the returns. They're happy to go again. You're happy working with them. You've built up a trust. You've built up a working relationship with them. And it can be your way to doing many, many property deals. That is joint venture partnerships. I'm sure most of you have heard of it, but it's something that can help you scale yourself and your business really, really quickly.
Some really exciting strategies there that can certainly help us to profit from property in a recession. I would really like to know how you can base your business around the current climate and how I can help you. I'd like your feedback on the video, and indeed, to discuss these strategies in greater detail, I would like to offer you a free and without obligation consultation call with myself, where you'll have the opportunity to discuss the strategies and ask any questions which you have about what you've just seen. In order to book this, please click on the link below, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.